The BBC reports that a man who drove all the way from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. and opened fire inside a pizza restaurant because of an internet conspiracy theory was sentenced to 4 years in prison Thursday. 28-year-old Edgar Welch, a father of two, had watched hours of YouTube videos about Pizzagate, which claimed a child sex ring connected to Hillary Clinton was being run out of Comet Ping Pong. Welch brought a rifle and pistol into the restaurant in what prosecutors called an armed invasion and shot into a locked cabinet where he thought children were being kept.
These hooded students fighting with riot police say they want a chance to learn. Theirs is a universal dream that tens of thousands here say they cannot afford. They call themselves the Confederation of Chilean Students, and they're protesting in cities and towns, including the capital, Santiago.
I'm marching for a change in the university financial system so that it becomes a free system of quality that allows everyone the chance to study.
What they're demanding is free higher education without debt. They say they cannot afford the degrees they need to find jobs. They also don't want to take out crippling high-interest loans and be indebted for decades.
Today we marched to denounce the state credit program and also for independence of education system.
These protesters want President Michelle Bachelet to follow through on her promises. Bachelet's term ends in March, and protesters say her proposed reforms are not enough. Chile holds presidential elections in November. The current frontrunner is proposing a scholarship system and sliding scale tuitions. Until these students get what they want, they say they're going to keep protesting, and they're calling on others from all walks of life to join their movement. Paul Chadurjian, Al Jazeera.
The United Nations Refugee Agency has said there were 65.6 million forcibly displaced people in 2016. This is an increase of 300,000 over the previous year. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees released the numbers in a report on June 19th. 40.3 million people were internally displaced, while 22.5 million were refugees. 10.3 million of these people became displaced in 2016, equating to a rate of one person displaced every 3 seconds. Syria accounted for the largest number of displaced people at 12 million, followed by Colombia and Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the fastest growing displaced population came from South Sudan with 3.3 million people. According to the report, nearly 190,000 refugees were resettled. Meanwhile, 500,000 were returned to their home countries and 6.5 million internally displaced people returned to their areas of origin. For United News International, I'm Mila Eni.
On Thursday, a U.S. appeals court lifted an injunction that blocked a Mississippi law allowing businesses and government employees to deny services to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people by citing religious beliefs. Opponents said they would likely seek to overturn the decision, arguing that the measure allowed for sweeping discrimination against the LGBT community. The Mississippi measure was one of a series of bills proposed in socially conservative, Republican-dominated states that critics saw as an attempt to erode the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark decision in 2015 that made same-sex marriage legal nationwide.
Beachgoers may have been surprised to see thousands of jellyfish on one of the world's most beautiful beaches this past weekend. Local man Justin Silvestre Albo posted pictures to Facebook of the bloom on June 16th. The pictures appear to show thousands of jellyfish covering Nacpan Beach in El Nido, Philippines. According to local reports, the municipal government may temporarily close the beach. Ocean currents and climate change may contribute to the sizes of big blooms like this one. This year, Condé Nast Traveler ranked El Nido 4th on its list of the 20 most beautiful beaches in the world. According to the list, quote, El Nido is home to around 50 white sand beaches, which are set around dramatic limestone formations and boast the finest and whitest sand you'll ever see. Well, at least when the white sand isn't covered by jellies. For United News International, from Metro Manila, I am Crystal Yap.
The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Tropical Storm Cindy headed inland near the Louisiana-Texas border on Thursday morning and continued producing heavy rainfall and life-threatening conditions over the northern Gulf Coast. The storm caused its first reported fatality on Wednesday when a 10-year-old boy was struck by a log that a large wave dislodged while he stood near shore in Fort Morgan, Alabama. Cindy is about 30 miles southwest of Lake Charles, Louisiana, with maximum sustained winds of 40 miles an hour. It's expected to weaken into a tropical depression later on Thursday.
Republican lawmakers in both the House and Senate recently cleared a bill that would define a fetus as a person after 20 weeks in cases of homicide. However, pregnant women in New Hampshire were almost given free rein to kill people thanks to some sloppy bill writing. Originally, the bill read, "Any act committed at the request or direction of the pregnant woman or for the benefit of the pregnant woman, and in any act committed by a doctor wouldn't apply in cases of second-degree murder, manslaughter, negligent homicide, or causing or aiding suicide." So the bill, which was on its way to the governor's desk, literally read any act, like pregnant women in the state could potentially form a kill squad and be fine. Republicans soon realized the grave error and fixed it through a process normally used to correct spelling and grammar.
As the temperature climbs, 2 people have died from heat-related illnesses in California. The 2 fatalities, the first recorded in the 3-day heat wave, took place on Monday in Santa Clara County, south of San Francisco, and included a homeless person found in a car. The victims were identified only as a 72-year-old man and an 87-year-old woman. The extreme heat brought on by a high-pressure system parked over the Four Corners region, where Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona meet, has boosted temperatures well above normal across much of the Southwest. The National Weather Service and local authorities issued heat advisories and warnings, urging residents to stay indoors and to drink plenty of water if they were outdoors. Power grid operators encourage customers to use electricity sparingly to avoid a shutdown or blackout.
On Thursday, the Justice Department announced that it had arrested and charged a former U.S. government employee for sharing top-secret information with a Chinese government agent. The criminal complaint states that Kevin Mallory has been charged with delivering defense information to aid a foreign government. In addition, he's been charged with making false statements to investigators. If convicted, the Justice Department said Mallory could face a life sentence. Court documents describe Mallory as a self-employed U.S. citizen and resident of Virginia. The documents state he is fluent in Mandarin Chinese and had a top-secret security clearance until 2012.
In Washington on Thursday, Senate Republicans introduced their plan for what President Trump has dubbed the failing health care law currently in effect. As Senate Republicans press forward to making their dream of repealing Obamacare a reality, 4 GOP senators expressed their opposition for it in its current form. The bill, as is, drastically cuts and reshapes Medicaid for the poor, gives a break to insurers, and ends tax increases on higher earners that have helped finance expanded coverage for millions. According to the Associated Press, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, indicated he was open to discussion and seemed determined to muscle the measure through his chamber next week.
The Indian government is weighing in on what women should and shouldn't do while pregnant. The Hindustan Times reports that the do's include having spiritual thoughts and hanging beautiful pictures in one's home, while the don'ts include eating meat and having lustful thoughts. The guidelines are spelled out in a booklet called Mother and Child Care. It's the work of the Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, which operates under the government's Ayush Ministry. The ministry was set up in 2014 to encourage methods of traditional healing. The government recently released the booklet in the lead up to the International Day for Yoga, which falls on June 21st. The publication, however, is already ruffling some feathers. Some experts in India say the rules are unscientific and that following some of them, like avoiding meat, could actually be detrimental to a pregnant woman's health. For United News International, I'm Neela Uni.
Counterfeit ISIS-themed Lego sets have been discovered for sale in Malaysia. The sets originated from China under the name Falcon Commando and were first discovered at a Taiping store on May 24th, according to Malaysian news site Berita Harian. Yahoo 7 News reports the toys were available on 3 websites, including one that ships to Australia. 8 toy sets pit counter-terror police figurines against ISIS figurines. According to 9 News, one of the ISIS mini-sets pictures an ISIS figurine armed with a chainsaw and a bloodied head at his feet. After the discovery of the sets, Lego has distanced itself from the counterfeit toys. A spokesperson told the International Business Times UK, quote, "The product is not a Lego product, nor are the bricks in the set Lego bricks. As a company dedicated to inspire and develop children, we would naturally never make a product like this." For United News International, I'm Matt Paul.
The nation's largest motorists advocacy group said the number of Americans traveling by car for the 4th of July holiday will hit a record high this year, fueled by a growing economy and relatively low gasoline prices. The American Automobile Association projects a record 37.5 million people will drive 50 miles or more from home during the holiday period that stretches from June 30th to July 4th. AAA said that would break last year's record of 36.5 million and mark a fourth consecutive year of increased motor travel for the Independence Day holiday.
A parole hearing resumed Thursday for convicted murderer and devotee of infamous cult leader Charles Manson, Patricia Krenwinkel, after officials investigated whether battered women's syndrome had altered her state of mind when the crimes were committed nearly 5 decades ago. Krenwinkel, 69, has previously been denied parole 13 times for the 1969 slayings of pregnant actress Sharon Tate. She helped kill grocer Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary, in what prosecutors say was an attempt by Manson to ignite a race war.
First, it was Barbie, and now it's Ken. Toy maker Mattel announced 15 new looks for Barbie's longtime companion, including 3 different body types. The male doll will now come in slim, broad, and original. The dolls will also be available in 7 different skin tones, 8 hair colors, 9 hairstyles, and an upgraded wardrobe. So that means kids can now choose a hipster Ken rocking a man bun, or a dressed down Ken with a broad body, which some refer to as a dad bod. The transformation marks Ken's first major update in 56 years. It's part of Mattel's recent push to reflect diversity to appeal to kids with a range of body types and styles. The new Ken dolls will be widely available starting July for about $10 each in the U.S. Last year, Mattel released a more diverse line of Barbie dolls with body shapes available in tall, petite, and curvy. For United News International in New York, I'm Rumi Fukushima.
The only way Sidhu can keep his onions from dying is by digging his own irrigation channels. But even doing that doesn't produce as much as he needs to make a profit.
Our real problem is that there is no water. There's not enough water, and even all neighboring farms don't have wells. Without water, we can't produce.
More than half of Niger's 20 million people depend on farming. The majority harvest rain-fed subsistence crops, and some are exported to neighboring countries. Niger is the leading onion exporter in West Africa. But less rain means falling exports and rising prices.
The prices are very high. I came just to buy potatoes and I found them to be very expensive.
Market traders say that despite complaints from buyers, there's not much they can do.
The high prices aren't our fault. We buy crops from the farmers at a high price and add a little to it to make profit. If they sell it to us cheaply, we will also sell it to people cheaply.
Farmers say they're producing little because of the water shortage and can't reduce their prices as they need to earn a living. The region's farmers' union is urging the government to find solutions to reduce the impact on farmers and the economy of Agadez.
The solution is to find companies that build us water reservoirs and dams for the water when it rains. We have onion production that brings in 3 billion francs and potato production that brings in 2 billion. We don't have any investors now, and that is the problem.
And while they wait for any investors to step in, food production continues to decline. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera.
America's deep political divide is a reflection of the country's attitudes towards gun control. The Pew survey released Thursday found a significant decline in overall support for gun control, despite some common ground on key issues. When people were asked if it was more important to protect gun rights or control gun ownership, 51% favored gun control, and 47% favored gun rights. In 2000, 2/3 of these surveyed claimed they supported gun control. Despite that difference, people are in broad agreement over several specific gun control measures. 89% of those surveyed supported preventing the mentally ill from buying guns, and 84% of all adults supported background checks for private sale.
As protesters approached the perimeter of an airbase on Tuesday, Venezuelan troops opened fire with what appeared to be rubber bullets. One protester was killed, bringing the death toll to 76 since the unrest began in April. At least 2 other people were injured and taken to the hospital by paramedics. Opposition lawmaker José Manuel Olivares criticized the shooting as repression. The government says it is investigating troops involved in the incident.
An armed Russian fighter jet flew within 5 feet of a U.S. reconnaissance plane over the Baltic Sea, the latest in a series of close encounters between the two militaries. According to U.S. officials, a Russian Su-27 flanker, armed with air-to-air missiles, rapidly approached a U.S. Air Force RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft on June 19th while it was flying in international airspace. The Russian aircraft reportedly flew erratically and was provocative in its maneuvers. The U.S. deemed the incident unsafe due to the high rate of closure speed and close proximity of the aircraft. Monday's incident marks the latest in a string of close encounters between U.S. and Russian aircraft. Earlier this month, a Russian fighter intercepted a U.S. B-52 bomber. And in May, another Russian jet flew within 20 feet of a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon spy plane. For United News International from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
The U.S. Justice Department said on Thursday that a federal grand jury in Victoria, Texas, has charged 25-year-old Mark Perez with a hate crime for allegedly burning a mosque on January 28th. According to the statement, if convicted, Perez faces up to 20 years in federal prison for the hate crime, 10 years for possessing an unregistered destructive device, and another 10 years for use of fire to commit a felony, along with a maximum fine of $250,000.
On Wednesday evening, Islamic State militants destroyed the Grand Al-Nuri Mosque along with its iconic minaret, affectionately known as Al-Hadba or the Hunchback by Iraqis. The destruction came as Iraqi forces closed on the mosque, which carried enormous symbolic importance for Islamic State, whose leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, used it in 2014 to declare a caliphate spanning swaths of Syria and Iraq. Insurgents chose to blow it up rather than see the flag removed by U.S.-backed Iraqi forces battling through the narrow alleys and streets of the old city, the final district still under control of Islamic State in Mosul.
The Church of England has admitted that it helped to hide the long-term sexual abuse of young men by one of its former bishops. Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby apologized Thursday to the victims of ex-bishop Peter Ball after his church published a report that detailed how senior leaders covered up allegations against Ball over many years. Ball was convicted and imprisoned in 2015 for misconduct in public office and indecent assaults against teenagers from the 1970s to the 1990s. Ball admitted to abusing 18 young men, and he was released from prison after 16 months. One of Ball's victims, Neil Todd, later took his own life. The church's report said, "The church, at its most senior levels and over many years, supported him unwisely and displayed little care for his victims."
A declassified report from the Office of Inspector General revealed that several CIA agency contractors conspired to steal over $3,300 worth of products from CIA vending machines between the fall of 2012 and March 2013. According to BuzzFeed, which acquired the report through the Freedom of Information Act, an unidentified contractor disconnected the network cables that enable communication between the vending machines and the agency's Freedom Pay system, thereby allowing purchases to be made by non-paying individuals. The report then says the hacker shared the technique with an unidentified number of other contractors, all of whom later admitted to taking part in the scheme. According to the report, all contractors involved were fired and then escorted from the building. The Department of Justice declined to press charges.
A group of former detainees say the conditions at a privately run detention center in Colorado border on modern-day slavery, and they're challenging it in federal court. The group has won the right to sue the Denver Area Detention Center, owned by GEO Group. Detainees say they were forced to work a variety of jobs, all for $1 a day. According to immigration lawyer Kathleen Kim, this is a violation of the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery and bars involuntary servitude except for punishment of a crime.